Twitch will know. Twitch really wants me to know that I have access to the newest navigation systems, which I think means that it'll recommend me crap that I don't want to watch. Which isn't hard. I'm not really a big fan of watching streams. I love LPs, but streams often are a little bit too rambly. So are some LPers, I suppose. I am, of course, also rambly. Now we're also live. All right, let's go ahead and tell Twitter that we are live. Doing some game dev. Streaming. Probably gonna mix it up. Coding and modeling. Paste. It wasn't that exciting. Alright, so now we are ready to begin our little effort to get this game a little closer to done. And that's probably going to involve another look at our gameplay system. It would be nice if we could get the gameplay to feel right. So the biggest problem with the gameplay right now is that it simply doesn't have any sort of oomph. The pattern of how it feels is awkward and bad. And I know that that's kind of expected. So when we're thinking about how, it's kind of expected for this phase, I mean, we're real early on in development. So when we're thinking about how to make this interesting, we have to think about what would be fun to play. I've been making a lot of other prototypes. And I've come up with some basic understandings of what might make this fun to play. First off, these interruptions are a bad idea, so we're going to get rid of them. I better go ahead and open up a new page in my notes. Oh, there's a pen. Good. Interruptions are bad. Just let things happen. Alright, so with that in mind, the reason that we were doing the zoom in is because all of these characters are passive. They're just kind of sitting here. What we are going to need to do is have this feel a little bit more like The Sims. Or any other game. They have to have a bit of liveliness to them. They need to move around and have conversations and be doing things. The problem is, right now, we don't have any concept of that. They are able to break stuff, but they're not able to actually do any of the things that the system thinks they should be able to do. So if we wanted them to watch a movie or work at a computer or anything like that, there's nothing that actually has that happen. Similarly, there's no pathing so they can move between those places. What we want this to feel like is not a frozen moment in time, but a particularly long and endless day. So we do want them to be moving around, we do want them to be changing what they're doing. None of those things will have any sort of statistical effect, but that'll add a lot to the feel of the game, and it will also give the player a lot of fodder for their own personal projections. So in order to do that, what we're going to need to do is create new hot points. These hot points will be what allow the characters to do the things that they are doing, and we're going to stick them in these rooms so that we can have these characters act in various ways as they go about their daily business. This is a little bit more difficult than it sounds because these characters don't yet have any concept of stats or specialties. So, for example, if we had a science room or something, it would just be arbitrary who would be doing stuff there. So there are a couple of things that we need to be able to do. For example, if something goes wrong, we want the character to be involved in that. And I think that what that'll be is if there is an interior space for the thing that's going wrong, they'll be there, and then at some point it'll break. If there's an exterior space, we'll have them in a spacesuit out here somewhere, which will be notated right now just by, I don't know, maybe we'll hide them or use a sphere or something. And then they'll come in through an airlock when they break it. And then there'll be a lot of other things that can happen which aren't directly related to the mission at hand. But basically, these characters are going to be spending a lot of time doing the things that they are supposed to be doing given their break. So in this case, for example, we've got Gravity Chartreuse is watching a movie. So we would want those two to actually be in the same place. We got two boots. Didn't realize that. Watching a movie. Because of that, we will need to have some kind of movie-like marker, some kind of positioning in the room that allows us to watch a movie. So we're going to need to create a new script to identify those places. Down here in scripts, we're going to need to come up with ships, non-mix-in systems, ship mix-ins. Here we're going to want to put in a functional hotspot, usability hotspot, crew operation hotspot, task hotspot. There we are. And this task hotspot will be what actually does all of the work. There. For holding the position and determining the animations and stuff like that. Task hotspot for allowing crew members to do things in the area, aka functional furniture. If it involves multiple well, we'll leave that out for later. We don't want to plan too far ahead. So this will be public string hotspot task. That should probably be an array tasks. And then we'll put in a tooltip. Tasks that can be... Oh, wait, we don't want it to be an array because each one will have a different animation. So task string tooltip. The task which can be accomplished here. Up here, we're going to go ahead and say if a hotspot is on the same object, only one can be active at a time. That is, it's one seat. That way we'll be able to add in multi-purpose hotspots and know that we don't have the same person sitting on top of themselves, you know, something like that. So we've got the task. We're going to need to keep track of things like the animations involved and that sort of stuff. For now, we're going to go ahead and just put in a string as a placeholder. Tooltip, the animation which plays while in the slot. The animation string, the animation sequence which plays while in the slot. And that's going to be either a trigger or a Boolean or something like that. We'll work it out later. It might even just be a raw animation call. But the thing is, this gets called when we first begin. So this state is invoked on the animator when the character attempts to use the hotspot. So it's usually a sitting animation followed by something else. Yeah, that should be fine. Exit triggers will be used to rejoin the system, the standard animation flow. That should do. Alright, so we're getting into this a little bit. I don't think I'm going to have any viewers today, which is fine, as long as people can actually see what I am, or hear me when I'm talking. Right. I think that's... Oh, let me publish this. Boom. Forgot to actually publish the thing that said that I was streaming, which will get me like one more viewer. Hurrah. Okay. So, someone said something on Twitter, actually. Just let me respond to this. The idea of... There. It's always good to stop and quietly respond to stupid stuff on Twitter while you're streaming, right? Right. So this is our setup for these tags here. We're going to need to come up with the crew. So that would be a customizable avatar. What is it called? Custom avatar? There it is. Occupant. And so what we're going to do is we are going to have these characters go from task hotspot to task hotspot to fake being involved. Now we have a couple more details that we can put in, and we're going to want to do just that. So public virtual void occupy avatar.customAvatar.occupant. So here we're just going to put in some checks for now. If this.occupant does not equal null, then debug.log error did not evacuate name before adding another occupant. But since this can be overridden, we'll be able to descend from that if we need to have some complicated multi-occupant stuff or whatever. This.occupant equals occupant. Debug.log warning. No animation playing yet implemented for name hotspot. But we do want to be sure that the character is moved to the correct place and in the correct direction. So we're going to say occupant.transform.position equals transform.position, and occupant.transform.rotation equals transform.rotation, and occupant.transform.scale. This is not one we're going to be able to use. We're not going to be shifting the scale of the people involved. That said, if we need to change how this works, we can just override it and have a descendant that does this hard stuff for us. For now, this should work well enough. All we need to do is search for an occupiable element for our crew members. So right now, what we're doing with our crew, we have a set of tasks that happen when we are having an event, and those are called stress events. These here need to include where we need to put the people and all that sort of stuff. The good news is we already have the framework for that. We just have to add the functionality. So here you can see we got this basic break event, which has a ship component rule. This gets run when we're on the prelude. And then we have the script, which gets run during the actual execution phase. These simply need to have a couple more values added to them. So we're going to have the capability to search for any hotspot and occupy it within our system. So to do that, public virtual void occupy any hotspot. Occupy hotspot is fine. Occupy any hotspot. Here we are. And we'll say public virtual void occupy themed hotspot. public virtual void occupy hotspot. All right. So what we're going to do is we are going to find the hotspots within ourselves. So what do we want to call it? Hotspots. Task hotspot. Well, I can't even spell hotspot. We'll call it HS. Equals get components in children hotspot. If hs.length equals 0, no hotspot, just hide them for now. Debug.log name plus, it's not even name, it's get hotspots in children. This is actually wrong. We're actually looking to get it in the ship component target, which is why we're putting it here. Component target.hotspot. There we are. So we have to have a couple more issues here. If not ship component target, debug.log error name plus has not fetched a ship component target, dying. Return. So there'll be log warning. Ship component target dot name has no hotspots. Just hiding the character. But the thing is that all of this is dependent on the fact that there has to be a character. So if, what do we call it? It's right up here somewhere. Originator. So if there's no originator, we also need to barf. Name has no originator, cannot occupy a hotspot if there's nobody to move. Return. All right, so if this is the case, we're just going to go ahead and put them somewhere, like originator dot transform dot position equals new vector 3. I don't know. It doesn't really matter. Somewhere else. The reason we're moving them rather than literally turning them off, there isn't one. To do. Is this really how you want to do this? No, don't do it this way. I guess to do with caps is actually a different value. So return. Now, if we do have hotspots available to us, we're just going to go ahead and... so hold on, we got a couple more things we need to say here. Public virtual hotspot. Fetch hotspots. Return null. All right. That way we can reuse that function without needing to worry too much about complexity. And here we just say equals fetch hotspots. And we'll say if not hotspot or hotspot dot length equals 0, return. Debug.log warning, can't find a hotspot, hiding car if they exist. New vector 3, yeah, something big, it doesn't matter. All right, So now what we're going to do is we're just going to tell them to occupy the hotspot. So occupy hotspot hs random.range 0, hs.length. There we are. Now occupy themed hotspot is the same except for what we're going to do. So this would be hotspot.occupy originator. So over here what we're going to do is we're going to do the exact same thing, but we're going to search through it for a hotspot that has the correct theme. For each hotspot h in hs, if h dot task equals theme, that's not going to work because we need to have an unoccupied one, and h dot occupant equals null. Occupy hotspot h. Otherwise we'll say debug.log warning cannot find any themed hotspots. Within, and then we will just stick on the ship component target.name. This could cause an error, so if ship component target, then do this. Oh, it's always going to be there though, because we actually check upstairs. Perfect. Now here we just occupy the hotspot, and that should allow us to have this work out. So right now, when we add in the hotspot to this system here, boop, and boop, and we'll just go ahead and have it go to a random hotspot. Oh, I got an error. Louise says you deleted the to-do. Oh, yeah, the to-do that just barfed up the error when we were doing this. I didn't actually delete the to-do because the to-do is this warning here that says something that's obviously dumb, but we can certainly add in the to-do again. To do this a different way. So what else were we trying to accomplish here? And it's good to know that someone can hear me. That was Luis Eldorado. I actually think I pronounced that wrong. Just probably Luis. Sorry about that. Where are we going here? We are just checking to see whether or not we have any more barfs. Oh, what the... Damn it. So this actually barfs. Is originator a social? Yeah. We're passing around a social brain, but we need the actual body to occupy the hotspot. If I was just going to have the brain occupy the hotspot, that would certainly look messy. So here we are going to go ahead and specify ship component rule, occupy any hotspot. There we are. And that should actually allow us to vanish the characters that are trying to break and repair an object. Wah! So everybody's still here, but I know that there was at least one that was actually... Air. So this character should have occupied a hotspot, but they did not. So let's take a look here. no, that's too far back. I want to fix this, though. There is some situation where these slots don't actually correctly instantiate. There's some reason that they'd sometimes be null. If not slot, then continue. Let's put in a little warning, though. Debug.log. Phantom slot in the way. And there we are. Grind, grind, grind. There we go. Okay, so we still get some null reference exceptions here. If not SC, continue. Debug.log. Phantom ship component for virtual coloration found. Just gonna do some cleanup while I'm here. No reason to keep ignoring these errors. I think these are only errors that are happening because we're using a debug ship, which has very weird spawn rules. Grind, grind, grind. Come on. Come on. I hit play. I guess it wants to reinstantiate everything. Seriously? Come on. Maybe I crashed Unity? These shouldn't create an infinite loop. Well, we'll put in a break here, because I think that might be what's causing the problem. But it looks like we really, really borked it. Because that is an infinite loop. I can tell right away. I didn't make any progress that needed to be saved. It's just really obnoxious that it wants to do this. There's actually a plugin which can prevent this from happening. I don't like it when this happens because it means I've got to start up Unity again. I'm tempted to bounce the stream to allow that, because otherwise I have to go running around inside of my computer's task manager just to get this thing to stop being dumb. God damn it. Fine. And then we'll reopen Unity. It's a good thing I don't have anything particularly damning on my desktop, huh? There we are. Okay, so let's try that again. What's going on? Oddly, fixing these errors apparently crashes the game. Really? Alright, alright. Let's unfix these errors and try and figure out what's going on here. Do I still have the... No. So can you see the blue screen when I hit Control-Alt-Delete, or do you guys just continue to see the desktop? So this will be mostly views of my computer complaining. Okay, so it worked. So there's something dumb happening here. Let's go ahead and spend some time debugging something dumb for a while. So here you can see odd number of entries. I got some problems there. This virtual colorer system is probably what is causing the freeze. And all I can presume is that this is running while the ship components are coming online. And there's a couple of reasons that might be happening. If we take a look down at the ship components section, you can see that this is full of empty objects. If we empty that out and hit play, okay, so that got rid of that error. So now we only have this error, which is the phantom slots here. These phantom slots are probably from the same problem. They're probably the same thing. If we look at the crew manager, you can see how it has these empty slots. So if we put 0 there, that would also work. But these are situations where this system shouldn't have any of these values. So what we're going to want to do is clear them out. Unfortunately, if we do that here, we're going to be inside of a for each, and that will really screw us up. You see that problem? So what we're going to need to do is just put in a little bit of a note here. Ship component manager has damaged cache. Debug ship. And then over here, ship crew manager has damaged cache. Debug ship. There we are. Luis Eldorado says he just sees black. Oh, that's fine. There's nothing on that screen that's particularly interesting. I'm sure you can see it yourself if you hit Control-Alt-Delete. Unless you mean like you still can only see black, because that would be pretty bad. Okay, so we need to put in some lines of code to actually determine whether or not our hotspot is being occupied. So here we're going to go, oh, it should just say no animation yet implemented for. So let's take a look here. Java broke, stress event, lumping in Java character. Okay, well, let's try this one more time. Okay, so neither of these characters, none of the characters involved actually ended up. Oh, they all have new names. Okay, so the names aren't actually saving properly at the moment. That's fine. Let's write that down though, so I don't forget. Where is my pen? There it is. Names, among other things, aren't serializing properly. All right, so the faces also are different. So these characters are just completely new characters. They didn't properly deserialize it all. Arrow, it's all characters. All right, that's fine. Nothing terribly important is happening. Unfortunately for us, though, we need to wait until the next event. There we are. So we're looking for by Starwalker and their situation. So if we take a look, that hasn't actually been triggered yet, but the preliminary should have been. So if we take a look here, it's got breaking ship component stub. Okay, well, that's not really a stub anymore, is it? Okay, so we have to come up with something that lets us see why this isn't working. It could be that I just didn't save the prefab. Basic break event. Here it is, right? See? So this should happen. It just selects a component, breaks the component, and then occupies it. If we move this up, we can't move it up? Oh, come on. That's dumb. Well, either way, it's breaking, and then it should do this. So if we open this up and we go over to the ship component rule, we should have the option to occupy any hotspots. Let's put in a debug. Debug.log occupying hotspot. Let's take a look if we can find it. I should really start to turn on debugging as a much more conditional operation. Unfortunately, neither of these characters are actually having a problem with parts. They're all just having movies, and we don't have that. So there we are. Gravity Lathdo. There we have it. So we've got... So gravity got lumped in here, and then that happened. Stress event prelude, basic break event is running, loading, shipment, class breaking, physically broke set to true, physically broken on processed set to true, occupying hotspot. Maneuvering jet has no hotspots. Hiding character. So this should have hidden the character of gravity. It was gravity, yeah. But as you can see, they are not exactly hidden. Is this a problem with how I'm defining them? Okay, so they're not actually named after... there we are. Which one of these is gravity? Gravity. There we are. So here's the question. Is there something wrong with the animator that's causing this to de-animate, to de-move? No. No, these can be moved. Love these floating point errors. Don't worry, you never actually see them this far out. But it might be better if we turned them off instead. Okay, well, let's try just turning them off. Originator dot... Oh! I was moving their brain. After I actually talked about the fact that you couldn't just move their brain, I then immediately went in and only moved their brain. So... to be honest, we shouldn't be moving them. We should just be turning them off. I just don't like the idea of having to turn them back on again. Unfortunately, Starwee is the only person who has an event, and she's just watching a movie, so we'll get rid of that. And then more of our behavior stuff happens, and Jabeba River, who is right here, has an event. And now she is in deep space. So the problem is that the prelim isn't actually running as a preliminary. It's immediately it's waiting until it's actually gonna happen. So we need to adapt this to fix that, because that was something I was going to do, and it no longer makes any sense. Alternately, we can allow them to just be doing whatever they want, and then have them go off to do something, and then hit the preliminary up. Well, if any of you are listening, it might be worth thinking about this and telling me what you think. Would it be more fun if you saw a couple of characters doing their thing, and then after a while another character came in and complained that they had broken a device? Or would it be more fun if there were all of the characters there, and then one or two of them went off to do something, and then came back and said they broke the device? Which seems like it would be more immersive and interesting. Having them leave to go break the device and then coming back in seems like it would take a long time. Whereas if you wanted to have some method of accelerating things, you can just presume that they have been out there for hours and hours breaking shit, and have them come back in. For now, let's go ahead and just turn off the pre-element here. I can't actually remember the way this works. Let's not rush. Let's actually look into it a little bit and have it explain itself to us. Okay, so here when we're actually creating this event, we have ongoing and pending events like this. And when we are actually executing, what we do here is we run the ongoing events and then we prime them. Otherwise, we do not prime them. So the thing is that it makes a lot of sense for us to simply mark this as a non... let's make sure that priming is just the first part here. Well, what are they then? Stress event. No, it's not a scenario event, it's a stress event. So prime just runs the originator, the prelude. It doesn't run the actual event, so that's fine. For now, we'll just make that so that that happens up front. Ongoing. Now the problem is that this ongoing event won't actually get triggered. It won't actually run until we click on the character, and we can't click on them. You can see that Surthr Goshen is like way in the middle of nowhere. Rah! All right, let's go ahead and turn them off rather than hiding them for now. Originator.avatar.setActive. No. GameObject.setActive. False. And then what we're going to want to do is make sure to set them to true whenever we actually occupy a hotspot. So let's go over here, and in the hotspot we will say occupant.gameObject.setActive true. But here's the issue. We don't actually run the event until we click on these folks. And we can't click on these folks if they don't exist anymore. So when we turn the game object off, we make it difficult for us, Gravity Gruen, for example, we make it difficult for us to click on them because they're no longer here. We can click on them down here. Oops, I broke the maneuvering jet. How about if I dismantle the Hab cockpit clone to fix it? Notice that she turned back on when we clicked on her. That's kind of interesting. There's something in our system that turns her on when we click, or him, whoever, when we click on their avatar. And I think that's because otherwise it's possible for you to try and zoom in on someone who's not in scope. So I make sure to turn them on and put them in scope if you click on them. Well, anyway we cut it, that should work out fine, except for it might be worth putting in some kind of more aggressive, what do I want to call it? A more aggressive method to work this out. Because otherwise, you know, you won't even be able to tell that there's something going on. Why don't I add in a new value here? Say, and then we can say, I'm outside maintaining the component. Except for I don't actually know whether or not component is valid. What is it? It's say token replace ship component. That's fine then. All right, so now they should at least announce that they are missing. So Guybrush Starcrosser should have just told us, yeah, I'm outside maintaining the propeller tank clone. Thank you, Guybrush. And now we can move around and we can't see Guybrush because Guybrush is out of scope. We can click on Guybrush, which will cause their event to happen. Later on, we may add in a function or something which will bring him back in either on a timer or when the player clicks on next or something similar. The problem is that Guybrush is not the only person here. Gravity and Jabea are also involved. Here's the thing. What if Gravity says that she's watching a movie with Guybrush, and Guybrush is not here? That's a little bit of a conflict. So when we select a character, we need to make sure that they're not involved in any other events. Except for even that's not great, because it may be impossible. There may physically not be enough characters to do that. I guess it's fine. Okay, so that's what happens without any sort of systems, without any sort of triggers. What we would like to do is write out the characters that are not in the event. But I'll leave that for later. I'll write that down here. Non-event characters. Hide and disable portrait. Verse out of scope cares which need the portrait. All right. Well, sorry, I'm knocking this mic around. This mic is not very well behaved today, or last week for that matter. All right, so we've got a couple of values working here. We've got, come on, behave. Oh, that's the problem. Get over here. All right, we got a couple of values working out here, but there are definitely some situations that are missing from our little affair. And basically what we want to do is we want to tag characters as existing when their event happens. We want to have only those characters exist. And the way we can do that is we can simply turn off all of the other characters when we have our stress event. So here is our stress event. And no, that's the scenario. Here it is. So here's our scenario. What we're going to want to do is turn off all of the characters that that we don't need. Here's the thing. For each Social Brain C and crew live participants.add C, stress live that avatar equals C. We don't even need this part anymore, do we? But then we figure out which are in over the limit and break them. This is the only part we actually need. So what we're going to need to do is live.participants.add. This stuff is not going to be the way it is. We've also got an avatar set up right now. I don't believe that there's any call for an avatar because we're no longer doing things in a first-person view or even a close third-person view. So we can just get rid of the avatars. So what we're going to want to do is say live.participants.clear, and then we're going to want to do for each Social Brain C in crew c.avatar.gameObject.setActive false. And that will allow us to turn off all crew members that aren't active in the scene. Easy enough, right? And then what we're going to want to do is use crew here. Oh, we already do. Okay, so the live.participants.add isn't going to be there. But we're going to go ahead and add them in here. Live.participants.add C. The thing is, we also need to add in any other participants where we end up, if we ever need any other participants, we're going to want them to be added in as they unfold. So public static void add participant if needed, social brain. And we'll say if live.participants.contains crew member, then return. Otherwise, add them and turn on their camera. Live.participants.add crew member.avatar.gameObject.setActive true. Let's go ahead and change that set game active stuff. That seems like it's going to be an obnoxious thing to try and remember. Let's go over into our crew members and set up an in and out of scope option for them, just so that we don't have to worry too much about them. So if we got our custom avatar here, we are going to want to move it out and in of scope as we need. So for that, we're going to go ahead and create some functions. So public void move into scope, or what's another word for moving something into and out of scope? Local, thesaurus scope. Move into elbow room. I guess I don't know of anything that just seems to imply the right phrase. Well, I guess we'll just call it move into scope, I guess. And move out of scope. So with these, we are going to want to make sure that we are active, gameObject.setActive true, and we're also going to want to make sure that our portrait cam is active and happy. The thing is that the portrait cam has a couple of unusual features to it. because it may be required to have multiple portraits of the same character at all times. So what we need to do is we need to have an onPortraits changed that fixes this sort of system up. But the basic idea here is we're going to want to do this clean cameras thing. That's not actually going to work because we're not going to be destroying them. We're just going to be turning them off. So what we're going to want to do is, so this is not the visual. The 2D visual requires the portrait cam to work, but it doesn't actually get directly affected by the portrait cam. What we would like to have happen here is here, this create UI, find references. So the only place it's currently being called is here in the portrait HUD, where we tell it to create a UI. See? So when we generate the portraits, we are just finding everything that needs a portrait generated and then generating it. This is a little bit more difficult than you might think. I mean, we can just go ahead and regenerate all of the portraits. There's not a huge reason we shouldn't. They're not expensive, and it would be a change. We would have a change in the things that are active. So for now, we'll go ahead and have a system to completely regenerate the portraits. The problem is that this portrait HUD doesn't get triggered properly. Here it is, portrait cam onPortraits changed, add listener, refresh. Refresh sets it to dirty, but then doesn't update until the next day. Okay, I already thought this through when I built this. It's just going back over the terrain that I've already laid out and realizing that it works fine. All I have to do is call onPortraits changed, and what it'll do is it will delete all of the active cameras and refresh them all. That said, we have our active cameras, and they're often not technically active. So down here in our generate portraits, what we're going to want to do is check and see whether or not the portrait cam is active. So if cam.enabled, if not cam.enabled, then continue, because that way we won't generate anything for characters that have been turned off. This has some risks. If we have turned off all of the characters, there are some reasons that we might do that for saving face. And if we generate the portraits at that point, no characters will get generated. So what we'll do is, that's fine. That's fine. That's all good. What else do we need to do? All right. We need to tell it that we are changing those portrait cams. And the way to do that is over here in the stress event. We're going to want to, oh, it's a scenario. Stress event is not a thing we care about at the moment. We're going to want to tell it the camera system to refresh. So portrait cam dot onPortraits changed dot invoke. There we go. And that's fine, but that should actually be on, sorry, this should actually be on the crewmen, the crew that are being changed. Custom avatar, here it is. So we'll put this into our move into scope and our move out of scope. That should do. All right, so with that in mind, we can go back into our scenario and change these to moving into and out of scope. And then here, we can move them out of scope. And then down here, we can move them into scope. We can actually just call add participant if needed. All right, so then what we need to do is we need to go into the crew rule. There's a rule for crew members, and we're going to want to change it so that the people rule adds people when we select them. So for here, we're going to go ahead and say scenario.add participant if needed, and then the target that we've just selected, which is a social brain, so that's fine. And that way, we'll actually add all of the characters that are affected, even if they are not people who are actively participating, you know, or who are active, the people who are actively breaking shit versus the random people who are nearby. It will add them both into the system. All right, I hope that was relatively clear. I just kind of got lost in my own world for about 15 minutes there, but that's how it happens. So this should change. Unfortunately, okay, so we've got 3 crew members that are affected. Oxygel, Stardust, and someone else. So if we click on Oxidel, they're watching a movie with Stardust. So only Stardust and Oxidel should be active. We shouldn't actually see Boots or whoever the other character was. They should just not be active. And if we take a look here, you can see that they're all disabled here. So this is correct in terms of how the room looks. You see the room is quite empty. That's correct. But these generated for all 4 crew members. So I think the problem there is that rather than clearing the portraits, we are just adding new ones if necessary. So here we're deleting the portraits if the avatar is null, but we also need to delete them if the avatar isn't enabled. There we are. That ought to do it. All right, so here you can say Booze Black has fat fingers. And you can see that Booze Black is outside maintaining the rocket thruster clone. And this is what I was talking about when I said that we were going to have problems setting these characters to being turned off, just because they are not, technically speaking, supposed to be turned off. If they weren't off, we would see their portrait. They should be in a spacesuit outside. And I think that's what we're going to have to bite the bullet on. We're going to have to move them outside instead of whatever else we were doing. But I think that really what we need to do is have them have everything have a hotspot, because there's always going to be some place that we want the characters to maintain. What I can do is just pick a random spot near them, which I guess is what I'll do for now. So here what we're going to want to do is change this out, just returning here. It was the wrong thing anyway. So here is where we probably want to move the character and have it work. So we're going to say move to component, and then we'll just specify the ship component target. And I guess it's probably better if that happens in these areas instead of up there, just in case at some point later we want to do something a little bit different with this. We don't want to package it up too tightly. So down here, public virtual void move to component. Oh, we just need to say move to component, because we already have the originator and we already have the target. So if not originator or not target, debug.log warning, no target originator, cannot move them together, error in name, return. Otherwise, we're going to go ahead and move the character to the target. So to do, put in a space suit. And then we'll say originator dot position dot avatar dot transform dot position, And then we're going to want to set that equal to a place near the target. So the problem is we don't actually know how large the target is, just because it is an arbitrary size. So how far we move our target and which direction we can move it is a little bit tough. For now, we're just going to go ahead and just have them get put above the target some arbitrary amount, because we're looking down on the ship most of the time, so it would make most sense to be above it. Another thing we're going to want to do here is our task hotspot. We're going to need to have a public string equipment tag. Tooltip, the equipment they should have while in this slot, such as a space suit. Now these are placeholders, so we're going to be changing them out much later for different kinds of things, so that we can specify them without any problems, you know, with spelling errors. But for now, we don't know what we would like, because we haven't gotten anywhere near that far, and keeping them as strings is relatively decent until we figure it out. Strings are a relatively decent placeholder. Alright, so now we're moving them rather than turning them off. And that should really help out when it comes to seeing the characters that are involved. So here you can see that Pwals Kinison has fat fingers. And you can see that Pwals is floating above the airlock. It's actually hard to see that she's floating above the airlock, or he, because she's floating above this root element of the airlock rather than the center of the airlock. But there's not any real reason to fix that, because what we need to do is add in hotspots for all of these objects, rather than having this kind of situation where they just arbitrarily stand around. Now, if we click on Kinison, it'll go ahead and zoom in, and they'll have something to say. There we are. And now we can see that right now, Star Slith Squared and Boover Cup Bue, Butler Cup Bue, are watching movies. And we can see that they are involved with Gravity Huyot. So presumably, Gravity Huyot is watching a movie with one or multiple here. And you can see that Pulse Kinison turned back on. Why did you turn back on? Let's write down the problem. Avatars randomly turn on. Well, let's try it again. All right, so Stardust pokered, huh? So Jabba and Oxygen are involved, and there might be a third person. So here you can see that Jabba is floating over here. She's actually inside the antenna, because it's above the radio dish. See that? Which is why everything looks so bad. She is in trouble here. And that's why we have to have some kind of more complicated system for setting that up. I don't think I want hotspots. I think I want to come up with a cleverer way to do it. I just don't happen to know what that cleverer way would be. Luis Eldorado says, have you considered using Visual Studio instead of Mono? Yeah, Visual Studio is not enough better to make me change. And unfortunately, Visual Studio, even the Community Edition, requires you to have a Microsoft account and stay logged in. Most people don't seem to realize that, because I think most people have a Microsoft account and stay logged in to Windows 10. I don't. I would never tell Microsoft when I'm using their products. So my Windows 10 is strictly offline and isn't allowed to do anything other than ask me if I'd like security updates. So I don't have a Microsoft account, and I don't want to log in, and I have no interest in telling Microsoft when I'm doing stuff, so I'm probably never going to change to Visual Studio. Alright, so I think what might have happened is that the other movie character was probably just going to be involved. I think that there was just the movies had set up so that everyone was involved, I think. So here we can see that Boots and Stardust are involved, but there's probably someone else. So here's Stardust and here's Boots. So here's the thing, when we click on Boots, that's when it determines who, oh, that's not the right person. Here, when we click on Stardust, this is when it produces the next person, and it's Boots again. Okay. So we've had two of the exact same events so far, where someone has broken something and the other person was involved. So a new day dawns, Oxygen Fuse has fat fingers, Boots watches a movie, and Jabba has fat fingers. So Jabba and Oxygen are both in trouble, and Boots is watching a movie. The question is, who is Boots watching the movie with? Jabba. Okay. So I think that that was it spawning in the character late. So here we can see Booze watching a movie. If we click on Booze, it then go ahead and it turns on all of the other characters. Okay, so there's something wrong with turning on the characters when you are watching a movie with someone, and that's a little bit strange. You can see that they're not on right now, but as I click them, they get turned on, and their avatar cameras got turned on. So that's a little odd. If we take a look at the portrait HUD, so that might help some. But we have an issue here where when we are running the movie, I think it's actually doing the movie determining what character it is in the body rather than in the prelude. So if we take a look at the stress event for movies, drop that in. Oh, we actually have some already here. Let's just delete all of these here. All right, so here you can see it says select another person. Selecting another person should turn them on. People rule. Select another person. Scenario, add participant if needed, target. All right, so over here in this scenario, we're going to go ahead and have it note how many people there are in this. So debug.log, scenario added, crew member, .name. Now there are live.participants.count participants. Boom. Unfortunately, Star Farrier has fat fingers, but that doesn't matter because that doesn't have anyone else involved. So what we really need to have happen here, oh, there we are. Gravity is outside and oxygen is presumably right here. Can't see very well because we have a really terrible camera. I should probably fix our camera. I'm watching a movie with Da Long. So if we take a look here, it says what's going on. I don't think Da Long was there. Yeah, so here it says scenario added Nadad Long. There are now 3 participants. Stress event relationship clone is running. So This is the prelude, right? Oh. Idiot. All right, so the problem is that we don't have a prelude. And what we're going to want to do is have this be a separate event. So this will be called script. And we're going to just take this, copy it, and paste it here. There we are. And this is going to be people rule select clone from, and then we're going to drop in this guy. Oh, sorry, this guy. There we are. There we are. And that way, the script will be different. So the reason I'm doing it like this is so that I don't have anything to say before we trigger them. Like they don't just pipe up and start talking, but since they have selected their character, we're not going to get a lot of extra nonsense with characters popping into existence when you click on other characters, which would be dumb. All right, so here it says that Garverty. So yeah, that looks like a Graverty. There's something screwy going on where the say doesn't work quite right. I'll have to think about that. Say busted if they're already talking? Question mark. I don't care about the airlock. You can leave it broken. All right, so we have another event, and it looks like it involves a lot of them. That would be 3 of them, and then someone's watching a movie with Graverty. So it's quite a night. Everybody's got something they want to do. There, this person's watching with Graverty. And then Boots. Gear Stalker. I actually like the name Gear Stalker. That's a pretty cool one. And now Graverty has a problem. Man, Graverty's just breaking all this shit. All right, so here we are with only 3 of the characters. Graverty is not involved today. If we click on Jabba Kirk, they're stuck outside, and the reason for that is because we don't have a hotspot set for this event. What we need to do is have a hotspot set up for this sort of situation. Now, the people rule and the ship component rule here are descended from a shared core rule called the rule base. What we're going to do is we're going to take this rule base and add in these hotspot functions. Now you might be wondering, why didn't you just put them in, you know, originally? Well, the thing is that these have a different function in ship component rule and in everyone else. Because in ship component rule, they're targeting a specific component, but in the rule base, they're going to be targeting the whole ship. And that's going to be an important distinction, obviously. Later on, we may come up with refinements. But for now, we'll just have them target the whole ship. So delete this, and we're going to make this our ship. So it's originator.ship. No, get component and parent ship. All right, so that should do. Down here, we've got this same situation, but since we broke it apart, it's actually going to be more generic. And this is a valuable way to do things, to do everything we need to do. This is not what we need, though. This one is not something we need, so we'll put that one back in. So we don't need this or this or this, because those are all the same. The only thing that changed is fetch hotspots. So let's go ahead and type that up. Fetches the hotspots in our target component, not the ship as a whole. Whereas over here in the rule base, we're just going to go ahead and barf if that happens. No, I guess... Okay, so we do need to have a move to component here in the rule base, but it can be something that actually has a target component for it. So ship component target. There we are. So the one that we're using on the ship component rule doesn't take that argument, and that allows it to be a little bit different. But either way, the result here is we're actually... I'm sorry, I deleted a whole bunch of stuff too fast. We do need to have that there because these functions do have a big difference, this move to component. With our rule base, we don't have that capability. We just won't move. We'll just barf and die. Alright, so this, we'll just get rid of it. The only one that's perfectly identical is the occupy hotspot, so we'll go ahead and delete that one. The rest of these are very specific to having a ship component target, and therefore do need to be altered with that in mind. All right, so the people rule now has the ability to do this rule-based function of occupying a hotspot that has the correct phrase. So what we're going to want to do is add in some hotspots with those tags. So let's go ahead and add some hotspots with those tags so that they'll be there when we need them. So if we take a look into our prefabs, we're going to want to get these rooms and put in some hotspots. So we're going to start with the computer room. There it is. And where do we want some hotspots? First, let's rotate it so that we can view it a little bit easier. And then we will just take a look inside. Oh, it's upside down. So you can see that this computer room already has specific places for people. And all we really need to do is turn them into hotspots. So that's not too difficult. There's no elements in here for them right now, but that's not too hard to fix up. We're going to go ahead and create an empty object here and move it onto one of those chairs and call it a hotspot. The problem is that we currently don't have any way to determine which way it's facing or what it's doing or anything like that. So what we're going to want to do is when we add in the hotspot scripts, hotspot, there we go. We're going to want to alter this hotspot so that it draws a gizmo and we can see what's going on. So public void on draw gizmos. Gizmos, do I have it? Yeah, gizmos dot draw sphere, wire sphere. And then we're going to want to go ahead and put that sphere where our head would likely be. So transform.position plus vector3.up times 2, thereabouts 1.6, 1.7, something like that. and then the radius will be 0.025f. And then we'll do gizmos.draw line, and then we'll draw it from the same position. So vector 3 head equals draw a line from the head to the head plus transform.forward times 2. We're also going to want to set the color. Gizmos.color equals white. Alright, so that way we should actually be able to tell where our gizmo is, where our object is, and what it looks like. So, for example, this poor game object is kind of in the middle of nowhere, but if we move it to the center of the room like so, I must have been dragging it on the wrong axis. You can see how that starts to line up with where the room is and how it's supposed to look. Now, we don't have any animations or anything yet, so our characters are just going to be standing. Oh, interesting, it's in the middle of the room. Our characters are just going to be standing on the ground rather than in the chairs. We don't have any capability for sitting just yet, but we can easily move them into place. Later on, those chairs might be an actual, like, value. So that, as you can see, is facing straight up. That's probably not the direction we would like it to face. If we take a look here, that is our transform.forward, not our transform.up. So it's clear that it's just rotating, it's in the wrong direction. So we just rotate it like this. Boom. And then we're going to want to make this a task which is a multimedia, or just a media. And we'll call this the animation tag a sit shit. There you are. And that should work. And then we're going to just call this media hotspot. And then we'll duplicate that and move it over a notch to the next chair, like so. So now this room has 2 hotspots for media. We can go ahead and add more later, but this should work for now. The thing is, I don't believe that the room we've got actually has those values in it. So I forgot to unrotate it. There we are. So let's bring in another room. There we are. And let's go ahead and add it to the bunk, because although the bunk is not where you would normally stay to watch movies, there is a hotspot in there. So we can put in a a hotspot for it. You can see we've got a similar setup here with these white balls being places where people can stay. Their beds. So we're going to change this over into yellow, just so that we can tell them apart. And then we're going to take this hotspot and drag it down into our media rooms bunk here, like so. And then move it. Oop, too far. Down. There we go. We'll rotate it around. Move it into the chair. Come on. Something like that's fine. And then we'll go ahead and duplicate that hotspot and add in another person watching from back here. Perfect. This hotspot probably needs to be moved a little bit more, just so that we're not bashing our shoulders into the wall. That should be fine. All right. So what we're going to do is save that change. Delete both of these rooms and hit play. So Star Starwelker is watching a movie with Juaba Chin Muscle. You can see that they both exist, but they weren't moved into the hotspot. The reason for that is because I forgot to set it up. As I say all the time, you have to remember to plug shit in. If you don't plug shit in, nothing will run. So here we have our system. We are going to want to be able to move characters into hotspots. Right now we can move a character that's the originator into the hotspot, but we don't have a rule to move a target character into a hotspot. So that's what we're going to do here. Public. Well, it's the same basic setup. So public virtual void move target into themed hotspot. Okay, so hold on. Move into shared hotspot. And then we're going to want to have another rule here, rule base. Just the same people, so move into nearby hotspot. Moves the originator into a hotspot, then moves the second person into a similar hotspot nearby the target. And we're going to want a theme here, string theme. And we're going to go ahead and grab all of the hotspots. Get themed hotspot, hotspots, fetch hotspots. Now there's no theme for those fetching of hotspots. What we're going to do is we're going to go through and find any group of 2 hotspots that aren't occupied and have the theme that matches. So list potential hotspots. No, task hotspots. Potentials equals new list. For each task hotspot h in HS, if h does not equal, if h dot task does not equal theme, then continue. Otherwise, potentials dot add h. There are a lot of possibilities, but let's make sure that there are, let's just use the first object that contains 2 hotspots, 2 open hotspots. If h.occupant does not equal null, then continue. So the problem we've got right now is that we don't ever clean up after ourselves and deoccupy these. We're going to want to have some way of doing that, otherwise it's not going to work out. Deoccupy hotspots after scenario. To be honest, we can probably just go ahead and do that now. Let's come back to this. So if we're going to go ahead and deoccupy this set of hotspots when the scenario is over, we're going to want to find out where we clear this scenario out. And here it is, destroy game object. Clear hotspots. So what we're going to want to do is for each avatar, or is it social brain? Social brain be in participants. So when we've added them to a hotspot, we never actually store where that is in the participant's brain. So we're going to want to actually do that. And to do that, we are going to want to just say participants, b.hotspot equals null. And then here, we're going to go over to their social brain and add in that hotspot as a value. So public hotspot, public hotspot, hotspot. Get return hotspot. set if hotspot does not equal null, then we want to well, first off, we just say if value equals hotspot, then return. If we're trying to switch away from some hotspot, we're going to want to tell that hotspot that we're leaving. And if we wanted to do that more accurately, we would go ahead and turn this into a getter and setter. Oh, we use the occupy command. That's fine. Go ahead and put in a clear. Public virtual void clear. And then to do add leaving animation, add leaving trigger for animations. So here we say if the hotspot is not null, then hotspot.clear. And otherwise we say hotspot equals value and value dot occupy this dot avatar. To be honest, hotspot should probably be on the avatar, not the social brain. I guess it's fine. Doesn't really matter. Anyway, when we actually look at our task hotspot, well, according to Twitch, I still have some people watching. You guys have a lot of patience for guys randomly mumbling to themselves in the background. Let me tell you, I just do not get why you wanted to watch me, but you're here. So we've added all of that in, but we haven't yet fixed up our system. Put in some exclamation points where it was. There it is. So this needs to be an array. Fetch hotspots. And we'll find 2 hotspots that aren't currently occupied. And to do that, we're going to go ahead and for int a equals 0, a is less than hotspots.count.length minus, or a is less than potentials dot count minus 1, a plus plus. The Bespin says, I'm watching because I like people coding while I'm coding too, and you're the only one coding in Unity. Well, I mean, zoom in on my code, even though I know you're just listening. Yeah, I do a lot of programming in Unity, and you're welcome to watch. So what we're trying to do here is, if these hotspots are in the same room, we want them to have the potential for us to occupy them both. So what we're going to do is we're going to say hotspot A equals, or hotspot H1, H0 equals potentials A, and task hotspot H1 equals potentials A plus 1. And we're going to say if H0.transform.parent equals H1.transform.parent twinned, then we actually do this just fine. So we're going to go ahead and say H0.occupy and then pass them the custom avatar of the originator, and then H1.occupy, and then we pass them. We actually don't have to do that, do we? We just say, first off, let's make sure that that never bites us in the ass. It's real easy to accidentally set this up so that you forget to do it. So here when we do this occupy, we're going to go ahead and tell the occupant hotspot. If occupant.socialbrain.hotspot does not equal this, then occupy.socialbrain.hotspot equals this. We'll go ahead and set it directly. if occupant equals occupied equals this dot occupant, return. That way it won't be an endless loop, but it will make sure that they both get called regardless. All right, let's just make double sure of that by taking a look in here. Yeah, it comes at the very end. Good. And then we'll go over into our people rule and yeah. So we say, what is it? Participant trigger target. Well, this dot target dot hotspot equals h1, but also this dot originator dot hotspot equals h0. Debug.log found twin hotspots for our buddies in name. Return. Otherwise, we're just going to want to do the best we can. So debug.log can't find twinned hotspots for name, log warning. And we'll just go ahead and put them in the first two hotspots. So if potentials.count is less than 2, debug.log error, not enough hotspots for our buddies. Only 0 or 1 found. Return. And then we'll just say originator.hotspot equals potentials 0, and then the same thing for our target, but with potentials 1. Just dumping it. All right. We have any more bugs? Okay, I'm sure we've got some more bugs. Do we have any more real problems? No. Okay. So here we're going to add in this people rule thing, and we're just going to tell it to find a occupy for both. Move into nearby hotspot. No. What's it called? Oh, people rule. It is move into nearby hotspot. Okay. What an interesting choice. And we're going to call this media, because that's what we're looking to move into. Hit apply, and then delete the event. The Bespin says, any reason you're using monodev? Laziness, or... That's interesting. It's the second time someone's asked me today, when usually I don't get asked very much at all. Monodev isn't that much worse than what Microsoft provides, but Microsoft requires you to be logged in. Even with the community version, you have to log in to verify that you are registered with Microsoft. And I have no intention of ever registering with Microsoft. My Windows 10 account is offline and will stay offline forever. I never log into the Microsoft accounts, and I never will. So Shockweave is watching a movie. Unfortunately, it looks like Shockweave is trying to watch the movie with Pulse, and that's not going to work out because Pulse is in space right now. Still. Yeah. Yeah, they're not doing a very good job of watching the movie with you. They're kind of in space right now. That was an error? What error was that? Value.occupy. Okay, so if occupy, then value.occupy. If value, then value.occupy. That's good. The Bespin says using JetBrains. Yeah, that's good. If I cared enough, I would probably install JetBrains. But I think the JetBrains also might require a login. I haven't looked into it recently. Any way you cut it, we now have some characters watching movies. And you can see that it politely put them on opposite sides of the ship. Unfortunately, it looks like all of these characters are watching the movie with the same second person, Ulalu Wu. So Starfarrier is watching it with Ulalo, and so is Futura. So what we're going to want to do is, here in the social rule, the people rule, when we try and select a random person, we're going to want to try and select someone who's not currently active. Yeah. I haven't had that many problems with MonoDevelop, especially in recent days. It used to be pretty sketchy, but it's pretty solid now. So here what we're doing is we're trying to find a possible crew member. So we're going to go ahead and add in the list of likely crew members. So list likely targets. Likely targets. The Bespin says, I used to use my MacBook, and that was a shame because MonoDevelop is crap on Mac. Probably, yeah. I'm a Windows guy at the moment, at least here at home, so it's quite solid on Windows. But this is not a great... MonoDevelop is not a great platform. It's not a great IDE, but it's not a bad one if you happen to be on a platform it's decent at, and I don't need anything more. There's nothing I need to accomplish that I can't do in MonoDevelop. So what we're going to do is create a set of likely targets. So for each social brain C in crew, if C dot... oh wait, we're going to go ahead and say if scenario dot live participants contains C. So if they don't contain it, we're going to add it in. Likely targets add C. If likely targets count is greater than 0, then we're going to go ahead and say crew equals likely targets toArray. And that way, what we'll do is we will only get the targets that seem likely. If possible, fetch people that aren't actively involved in a situation. Well, I think it's a good thing to use an IDE that makes you more functional. But I just haven't had any speed differences. I've been programming for a long time, and I've never noticed any speed differences in my programming depending on my IDE, assuming that it has basic functions. I mean, if you're using like a text editor, you're obviously going to have a lot more problems. Oh, Jabba has fat fingers, of course. You stereotype. Okay, so it looks like if you click on a character while they're talking, they don't continue and say the next thing. That's an interesting bug. There we are. So, Stuarwi is watching a movie, and I can tell that they're watching a movie with a specific person. But I can't tell where because our angle is just the worst. So let's go ahead and try that again. I need to fix this camera so that it doesn't suck. It sucks really bad right now. Like, it's totally non-functional. Oh, look, everybody's watching a movie. So that's not too much of a help because it's literally everybody possible. Let's go ahead and try that again. Alright, so Jaboba Blauk is watching a movie, and they're watching a movie with Star Lightsbled. And you can tell because they got put in the right spot. And then over here we've got poor Oxygen trying to fix something by floating above the ship. Now, this is a much closer approximation to what I would like to see. However, it's still not alive. These characters can't wander around and do things yet. is still a moment frozen in time, but at least now it's a moment that feels like it exists and isn't just being shown to you on a sheet of paper. What I do want to do is put in some airlock hotspots. So we're going to pop in our something with a hotspot here. Just grab a bunk room, and then we'll also unrotate the bunk room, like so. And then we're also going to want to add in our airlocks, like so. And then we're going to move one of these hotspots into the airlock. Now this media hotspot isn't going to be a media hotspot, it's going to be an airlock hotspot. And as you can see, it's a little bit hard to tell what's going on in the airlock when it's A, rotated like this, and B, the exterior exists. So we're going to go ahead and flip it. I think that this is up. And then we're just going to turn off the exterior for a minute. There we are. And it's upside down, of course it is. I never guess right, ever. Alright, the Bespin, have fun sleeping. I have quite a while to go before I sleep, but I'll probably only keep programming for another maybe 10-20 minutes. There's not going to be a big finale, so don't worry about missing anything. There we go. Morse Amalgam says that there will be a thrilling climax. The thrilling climax is that these characters will be able to get back into the ship when they're done breaking shit. Which is admittedly less thrilling than them being stuck outside the ship and dying horribly. So what we're going to want to do is have this be an airlock system. And the animation tags will just be blank for now. We may switch this later into two sets of hotspots, the airlock in and the airlock out, just because they would have different animations. But for now, we don't have to worry too much about that. We'll go ahead and just... That's good enough. And we'll save that. And now we need to tell it to have that happen. So over here in our stress events, we'll drop in a basic break event. And then we'll go down to the script of the basic break event, and we will add in a situation where they return back into the ship. And to do that, we're going to need to add in another script here. I wish I could rearrange these elements, though, because that's really obnoxious that we can't. For now, however, we're going to just go ahead and manually move this down, because we want this one to be a move to hotspot, move to themed hotspot, occupy themed hotspot with a string of airlock. Boom. Now that means that once we trigger the event, they should just magically teleport back inside the ship. Later on, we'll create some kind of pathing system. It's actually not too hard for people who are actively in space, but for now, you know. Good. Gravity Reveille has fat fingers, which means that Gravity Reveille is currently standing up here outside of the ship. Now, when we tell them to come inside, boom, they didn't come back inside. Water tank clone has no hotspots. Aha, of course, because that's the wrong category of object. We overrode it so that it would only work with the hotspots within the system rather than within the target rather than in general. That was a poor choice. Let's go undo that. So we've got all these overrides, and we're going to make them not be overrides. We're going to be making them into more virtuals. I'll call this fetch local hotspots. Occupy any local hotspot. Occupy themed local hotspot. And move to component. That's all good. So now that should work, but we have to tell it to work better now because we've just changed the function here. See how this says occupy any hotspot? It's going to have to say occupy any local hotspot. That should be fine though. I'm getting hungry. Alright. So Brutes Witty has broken something, and you can see that Brutes is those are obviously not rotated correctly. So we'll have to fix that. So let's go ahead and fix that. But you can see that what happened is the script got run and she's inside rather than outside. Whoop. She actually moved to a different hotspot. So she should be moving to the local hotspot, but instead, see how this didn't change? I just didn't save it because I'm an idiot. That is any local hotspot. Oh, I broke it. I see. I forgot to actually tell it to call the correct functions. So here it says move to component, occupy hotspot. So what we're doing is we are trying to fetch only the hotspots that are local, and I forgot to tell it that. So this has to be fetch local hotspots. That's fine. Other than that, it seems to work fine. We're going to want to fix that. Let's go ahead and in our hotspot, we're going to go ahead and use transform.up just so that we get a better idea of what's going on. Drop in our airlock here. There we go. And you can see that they're all over on their sides. So we're going to just grab all of these and tell them not to be tipped over. So now they are all tipped over in a different wrong way. Good enough. We'll go ahead and turn our airlock exterior back on. It doesn't matter for the sake of rendering them, or it might, I don't know. But it would be better if they weren't randomly wrong. There we go. So, Boo's Pressure has fat fingers, and Jaboba watches a movie with Buttercup. They have the same basic look because their hair is the same color. Boos, on the other hand, is outside on the propellant tank clone. Ah, there they are, floating above us. Obviously, we're going to need a better method of handling that, but when I click on them, they move down here into the airlock. That's obviously very primitive, and you know they should actually feel like we're coming into the airlock and doing that sort of stuff. But it's not too bad for this kind of early stage. Later on, we'll have the airlock actually do stuff and have animations and so on. But we've already laid the groundwork to be able to add those in. It'll be a while before we get far enough to actually be able to implement them, though. But it should be okay for now. So now the question is, do we have a second event that works? I have to actually tell Jaboa to become friends. Buttercup and Buttes are both watching movies, so that should be a movie there and a movie there. Yeah, good. Good. It's all working, everybody. Everything looks great. I guess I will take a screenshot of this. I'm going to have to change the camera angle. The camera is really bad at the moment, and it's going to take some doing to make it suck a little less. Let's move this so that I can actually see the characters. That's not what I wanted to do. Okay, hold on. Needs to have a slightly higher angle, like that. All right, so I'm going to post this to Twitter, and then I'm going to sign off for the evening. I'm going to have to decide what I want to eat for dinner. I could cook something, or I could order out. It is a miserable day outside, though, so I would feel a little bit bad for whatever delivery person got stuck with me. So I added in hotspots and events and going outside and stuff. Here's some people watching some movies. Paste and indie dev. Exciting stuff, I'm sure you'll all agree. Alright, well, I'll see you folks around. I hope you have a good time. I'll be streaming again on Wednesday. Today was unusually flat. I didn't have some of the viewers that sometimes come by and say hello, but that's fine. It lets me get a lot of work done on the cheap, but it also means I can't ask any opinions from anybody. See ya! Where is my stop button?